Have you recently gotten a magnetic hoop and you're a little bit confused about the brackets, how to set it up, and how to program it into your machine so that you can start using it? I was there too, don't worry. It is no secret that I am a huge fan of magnetic hoops in all shapes and sizes. But when I first got these, I was so confused about how to assemble the metal brackets and how to program it into my machine so that I could embroider safely without having to worry about the needle hitting anywhere on the hoop. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Shelby. I run a small at-home embroidery business, and I'm also committed to helping others learn so that you can do the same. All right, let's first chat about what you get in the package when you receive a magnetic hoop. You will always get the supplies to put the brackets on. You'll get your brackets. Sometimes you'll get a couple different sizes, and then you'll get the hoop. The front of the hoop has the spots where you attach the brackets, and then the back part of the hoop is just a magnet. For your own safety, make sure that you're not storing them in a way that they could snap together. I always like to either completely put the back of the hoop in a different spot so that there's no risk that it's gonna snap closed, or if I am storing it, I will take the front and snap the back on. It's not as strong when you're snapping the back onto the front of the hoop, but I'll snap it on a diagonal, and that's how I store them. But for today, I'm gonna put the back aside, and we are going to start with attaching our brackets onto the front. So you're always gonna make sure that you order the correct brackets for your specific machine. Each machine will have a different way that the arms snap in. These are the bracket styles for my By 1501, which is the older version of the mirror. And when I first started getting my magnetic hoops and getting them set up, I was really confused as to why there was two different sizes. Some of them only came with one size, so I didn't know which one I was supposed to use. This is just preference on where you want to keep your arms. So for example, these are the hoops that I use most often. If you can see, the brackets line up in the exact same spot, as well as with this small one. So when I'm using these three hoops together, I never have to change where my brackets are. It makes it super simple. Okay, so for the hoop we're setting up today, obviously there's no way that our brackets are gonna line up with my other hoops because it's just simply too large of a hoop. My largest hoop here, I'm thinking maybe there's a way that we could line up these brackets so that when I'm using either one of these hoops, the arm stays in the same position. And that just allows for ease of embroidery. You don't want to be switching your arms to different widths all the time. It's much easier if you can keep them in like one or two positions that you know fit for all your hoops. This big hoop back here is the one that I already use and I already have programmed. And then this small one up front is my new one, and I'm gonna try and make sure the brackets match. If your hoop only came with one set of brackets, you don't even have to worry about this step. Okay, so here's my new hoop. If I put these smaller brackets on, I don't know if you can tell, but they're lined up right over top of the brackets of my larger hoop. So these two would fit in the same arm position, where if I used the longer bracket style, those would require the arms to be out much wider. So I don't want to use this because I don't want to have to move my arms around too much. It doesn't matter which side is up or down when it comes to a square or a rectangle where the brackets are in the middle. If we look at a hoop that came with my machine, you'll see that on the right side, the bracket has this little notch here, and then it has a cutout in the bottom. And then on the left side, we don't have a notch up top, but we still have a cutout on the bottom there. So this bracket here, we see a notch at the top with a cutout square at the bottom. So this is the right side. So I'd put that on here like that. And then if we look at the other bracket, we have an extra notch here, which we can ignore. We don't have a notch on the top or the bottom, but we do have cutout squares. And if we look at our other hoop again, we'll see that that cutout square needs to be at the bottom of the hoop because that's what the arm attaches to. So I need to flip this around. So I'll be putting that on this side in this position. When you have them laid out in the proper orientation, it's super easy to just take your little screws and attach them. I loosely put each of the screws in first, and then I'll go ahead and tighten them after with the tool. And then I'm going to take my little Allen key and just tighten that up. You want to make sure your brackets are on nice and tight because obviously you don't want your hoop shifting around at all. That could mess up the alignment of your design. So our first bracket is on. This is our right side. Then I'm just going to repeat the same process in the orientation that we have it laying here. Now our left side is all secured and on in the proper orientation. Okay, so now our hoop is all set up. Brackets are on both sides, and it's time to get into how to program this into the machine properly. And before we go into that step, I just want to reiterate that if this is something that you're used to or you've done a lot, you might be thinking, wow, that's so simple. Why do you need to explain that? When you're starting out, everything is a learning process. I can tell you for a fact that I was really confused about how to put the brackets on properly or which ones to use. Why are there different sizes? It's okay. I'm here to help make that learning process a little bit smoother and hopefully help you avoid some of the frustration that I faced. For this next step, you're gonna need some cutaway that you can draw on, a pen or marker, and a ruler that will reach across your hoop. Set your front of the hoop away out of reach for a minute so it's not going to get snapped onto anything, and you're going to grab the back of the hoop now. You're going to use this to measure your stabilizer out and make sure it's long enough. This is a 12-inch wide cutaway stabilizer, so I'm just going to place my back hoop on there and give it a cut. We can put our back of the hoop down. I always like to have the tab at the bottom to make it easier for me to find it and pop it off, but it really doesn't matter. You'll see it's got this textured plastic to help grab onto the stabilizer, and the smooth white writing side goes down. So just lay that on there. When you're coming over with your front of the hoop, make sure before you even get close to that, your fingers are away and on the brackets. You're not gonna hold anywhere within that hoop because your fingers could get snapped in and it can cause some real damage. The right side bracket, which has that notch, is over here. Left side, if you can't remember, just write a little R and an L. Okay, so I'm holding my brackets. My fingers are not within that hoop. I'm coming across, I'm lining it up on top, and then I am slowly gonna lower down, and you don't have to do anything to line it up. It will snap into place. As you can see, that's why it's important to have your fingers well out of the way. If you heard that snap, it was pretty intense, and it aligns itself when it snaps closed. I'm not sure if you can tell, you probably can, but that stabilizer is really taut in there. It's drum-like. That's why I love these hoops, because there's no work involved in getting your stabilizer tight. So our first step is going to be to find the exact center of this hoop. That's why we have the stabilizer in here, because we need to draw some lines. So you can either go corner to corner, but I find it easier to go from 0 to 0 on both the X and the Y plane. So line up your ruler and draw a line on both sides. So this here is our center point. This is going to tell us our PX and our PY value when the needle is at the center. Next, we need to find what our R value is. R refers to these rounded corners. So if you programmed your machine in with 0 R value, it would think that this is a perfect rectangle and the corners come out to a point. So say your embroidery needle was going along and it thought this was a perfect rectangle, it would go and hit this corner because it doesn't know it's rounded and it can't go there. To get this value, draw a line where the straight edge stops and the curve of the corner starts. Same on this side. The straight edge stops and the curve of the corner starts. Now go ahead and measure this. So that is about 3 centimeters. So if we're going to convert this to millimeters, that's going to be 30 millimeters for our R value. Okay, R equals 30 millimeters. But one more value we need to look at is the total X and Y value of how long this hoop is. This particular hoop is 195 by 315 in millimeters. Our X equals 315 millimeters and our Y equals 195 millimeters. So that would mean that the needle of the machine could go the whole 315 millimeters and the whole 195 millimeters. Well, do we see a problem with that? If it went all the way to the edge, your foot of your needle would hit before the needle even got to that section. So we need to subtract a little bit of buffer zone on both the X and the Y so that our foot is not hitting the hoop before our needle reaches that full point. Now, Bai recommends subtracting 25 millimeters from each. I personally push it a little more. So I subtract 20 millimeters, which would give a full 10 millimeters, which is 1 centimeter on each side. So instead of 315 for our X, we are going to do 295. And instead of 195 on our Y, we are going to do 175. I hope that you can see this and understand where I'm getting those numbers from. If you have any questions, just leave them below in the comments. But right now we have our R, we have our Y value, and we have our X value. The only two numbers we need now are our PX and our PY, which are X center and Y center. Let's go ahead and get our machine fired up. Okay, so it doesn't matter what design you have loaded up, as long as you're in the edit section, not the embroider section. We're gonna select another hoop. Say we're gonna do J. That will have the machine realign itself back to center. So you can see the needle is centered and back at its origin point. As you can see, those brackets wouldn't line up with those arms. So I'm gonna move the arms out and then pop this on. If you've never moved the arms, all you have to do is take these two screws out, move it over, and then put them back in. Now, before I tighten these arms back up, I'm just gonna hold my hoop up to make sure that the brackets are gonna line up with where those arms are. So now just tighten those arms as much as you can, making sure that they're straight. Okay, our arms are moved. I'm gonna slide this hoop on. Now we need to move our needle so that it lines up with that point in the center. I am going to select needle number 1 to use. Now I'm just gonna use my arrows to move the needle until I think it's lined up with that point. So to check if it's lined up properly, I'm just gonna click the scissors to make sure that it goes down within that intersection. Looks like I want to go up a little bit more. We'll try again. Okay, so I hit that center. Okay, so now we're gonna look at what the PX and the PY values are. It only takes whole numbers, so I'm gonna take my PX as 95 and my PY as 5. Okay, PX 95, PY 5. Now we're gonna add it into the machine. So you're gonna go to the settings button, go to frame set, and these are all your hoops and the dimensions that are loaded in. G, H, I, and J are already set to my other magnetic hoops, so I'm not going to touch those. I want to keep those programmed. My hat hoop, I don't want to get rid of that I use all the time, but A to F are hoops that came with the machine that I don't use. So I'm fine with getting rid of those and making this, let's say this is going to be A. Okay, our first column is X center. Our X center is 95, so we can leave that. You'll see that typically if you get the center right, they're usually all the same. Our Y center is our PY, which is 5. So we're gonna change this. Clear it. We're gonna do 5. So that's changed our Y center. Our X size, if you remember, is our X minus 20 millimeters. So we are doing 295. So click X size, clear, 295. Our Y size is our 195 minus 20. So that's gonna be 175. Clear, 175. And then our R value is 30 millimeters. And because all of my magnetic hoops are the same brand, they all have the same corner radius, so they're all 30. So I'm going to change this one also to 30. So now I have all of my values lined up. So this is hoop A. I like to take a Sharpie and just label the hoop right away. That way I know which one's which. You don't want to get those mixed up. You can click OK. That means it's saved, and then after it's saved, you can just escape. So now if we go to change hoop and we click on our new hoop, which is our 295 by 175, and you'll see that it's gonna center itself over that point that we drew. That's perfect. That means that we set the center origins properly, and you can see on my screen here, there is our large rectangle with the rounded corners. And now if I wanted to move this design anywhere in the machine, I'm just going to move it out of the machine. You'll see that it stops. We're on needle 1, it's not going past. Same with the bottom. I moved it down too far, Y limit error, because we're staying within that hoop. So that's just a way you can test that you've done it right. All right, I hope that helped you and you were able to get your magnetic hoop all set up and ready to go on your machine. You're gonna love them and it's gonna make embroidery so much easier. So make sure you go ahead and give it a try. If this video helped you in any way, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, gave it a like, maybe a comment, and stuck around. I hope that I can make more content to help educate you on your embroidery machine.